Okay, so you've heard the discussion. Let's subvert the program. Okay. Just before we start the Q&A, just a little personal story. In the early 90s or the mid 90s, I joined a monastery, hoping that I would be able to live an incarnated reality as a monk. Obviously, I come from Cape Town, a colored community, large prejudice against anybody that was different to myself. And one of the very, very early heroes who kind of shocked the very foundation that made me enter into the monastery was yourself and Zaki Ahmad. The treatment action campaign shifted my mindset from, kyk die moffie, hy gaan sterf, which my community reflected, but seeing the bravery of Zaki and Mark just said, that's the type of person I want to be. A person, as Genevieve mentioned earlier, who was able to stand, to look at the pain that surrounded them at the moment, to ask the right questions, and then to put their bodies on the line and walk it. One of the most powerful images is Zaki in hospital, dying, and me in the monastery praying, please God, save Zaki. A Muslim person dying of AIDS. And I want to thank you for that. Yesterday I said, the greatest thing of my job is to be able to meet extraordinary people. And today I get to meet you, so I thank you for that. So, after this very, very powerful and profound presentation by Mark, any feelings, any thoughts, anything that you would like to just express?
Most of us are harmless. We just talk right stuff, bravery stuff, but on the ground we are not there. So we are here because we want to make change. I would like you to be brutally honest with us as church, as Christians. From your journey, what do you think of us? I mean, I might be putting on the corner, but it's just that I'm part of the church, I'm a priest, but often I look at us and I'm thinking like, we are just idealistic, we are harmless, we are nice, and the world is rough. And we are just, even our gesture are like this, you know? And the world doesn't deal like, you know, you can't fight the world with these nice gestures. Sorry. So, please be brutal with us, be prophetic, we use that, as a journalist. Not as a son of somebody who's to go to church, but as somebody who's there on the ground. And tell us and be brutally honest with us. And I think we are mature enough, we can handle that, right? There are big boys and girls here who can handle that. So you shoot. Okay, that's all.
Would you like to take maybe one or two? Okay. Maybe one or two more people? Okay, if you want to, okay. If you want to come up to the mic, maybe one or two more people, can you come to the mic? And you can ask your question. It's not a roving mic, so you'll have to come closer. Anybody else with a question? So we can deal with it quickly. Okay, I think just one. Okay. Go ahead.
You speak about your journey, you know, having interacted with people who ultimately came into power, and how you have, in the absence of a better word, I'll say how you've been a prophet and spoken truth to power. Just from my own personal human experience, I know that one of the things I fear, I shouldn't, but I do, I'm being vulnerable. One of the things I fear is rejection, especially from people that I share some familiarity with or have shared some familiarity and significance with. How have you sustained your prophetic voice through all these creative activities that you've engaged in the face of rejection by those you once broke bread with? Thank you.
Thank you very much for two very meaningful, to me, questions. I won't make them about me. I'll try to draw the lessons from them. What do I think about us and the church? My life as an activist, my life changed in early 1982 when I went to work at a place called Wilgerspreid Fellowship Center with some church leaders you may know, Dale White, Tish White, many others, Lindy Mieza, and I wasn't religious then, and I'm not religious now in the formal religious sense, but that example of their activism changed me completely, because I saw the way they lived as a community. In those days, non-racial community surrounded by horrible conservative Rudaport and Florida, etc. You drive into Wilgerspreid Fellowship Center, it was like driving into another country, including with a border, because the security police would always be sitting there near the entrance spying on where people were. And, the projects that they were involved in, the Agency for Industrial Mission on the mines, the Self-Help Associates for Development Economics. For me, that was living your beliefs. That was living your faith. And since then, I have encountered many people of faith who are the greatest activists as individuals, and that I respect and that I love and that I look up to. But I've felt that the church has failed as a force for good. I don't know why, because I don't spend time sitting in church services and so on and so on. But even now, I look at what we're going through in South Africa, and I think, where are the voices of morality? Why are some of the church leaders, like Archbishop Thabo Makgoba and so on, I'll name names who I know, not visible as they should be? Where's the Desmond Tutu of now? And I think, because faith is so important to people's lives, that there's power there. So why is that power not being organized? I don't think you'll organize that power by coming and giving and lecturing people every Sunday or whenever it is that a church service takes place. Because I think church talks a lot about justice in its normal course. But it's going over people. It doesn't mean that when people go out, they behave any differently. That's the problem. So how do you inspire from people? How do you talk a language that makes people want to go out and say, okay, I'm going to go with Stefan, I'm going to go with Genevieve, I'm going to go and work with homeless people, I'm going to set up a soup kitchen, I'm going to change the way I behave in my neighborhood so people look at me and say, that person's different, and have to challenge their own assumptions. So you raise a big discussion, and I think we work too much in our silos. So as I was sitting before I came up here, I was quite involved in yesterday's shutdown. I talk a lot to the trade unions, to the COSATU people, to the SAFTU people, etc. And I knew that yesterday's shutdown would not be a huge success, because I knew they hadn't gone out and talked to people. And I sat back there and I thought, why were trade union leaders not coming and asking to speak at churches? Partly because they then have to use they wouldn't be able to spout the normal rhetoric They'd actually have to think and engage, and they'd have to ask themselves, is this comrade, comrade, comrade? Yeah, comrade, comrade, yeah. You know? And all that language that means nothing now. They'd have to translate their language and think, how am I going to persuade the people in this room? So, you know, the work that you do, the work that people, that's why I wanted to be here, because I know that it's different, but I think you've got a challenge on your hands if we're going to meet what's ahead of us. And then, you know, the question about my journey, it's, you know, the funny thing is, I mean, yeah, I could have gone down that path. I'll tell you a secret, that I studied at Oxford University in the same college in the same year as Boris Johnson. And I fought with him even in those days. But if you're from a position of privilege, which I am, there's a path cut out for you. Luckily, my experience at Wilgespreet, and that made me go in a completely different direction. Now, since that time, I've had lots of head-to-heads with power, and I've been put in a position of power. But when I've been put in a position of power, I haven't liked it. You know, for a while I was the deputy chairperson of the South African National AIDS Council, which meant that I went to meetings with cabinet ministers and the deputy president and the president. And one thing I know is that power is tempting. You know, you sit there and you think, oh, this feels nice. You know, I'm seen, I'm respected. It's a temptation. But I was lucky because I was part of the treatment action campaign, and I had to account back to the people that I really worked with. And so I wasn't drawn by that. In fact, I was revolted by it, to be honest with you. And that was why I voluntarily resigned after I thought that we'd done enough to build the National AIDS Council. I stepped down from the National AIDS Council. But, you know, specifically to your question, rejection is not, it hurts. And you may find this hard to believe, but, you know, I'm not somebody who thrives on conflict. I don't like conflict at all. In fact, Zaki Ahmad likes conflict. Zaki Ahmad likes a good fight. Me, I don't. I like people, even in inverted commas, enemies. I always try to keep the doors open, and I can never just be hard to a person. I can never just insult and hurt and deliberately hurt a person. Zaki, I'm afraid, can sometimes, as you probably know. That's possibly why we worked quite well together, because I kept doors open and I tried to reopen the doors that he got shut. But I'm also somebody who likes to be liked. So you may not believe that. So it's always a struggle to be disliked. You know, it was a struggle to take on the community in Albert's farm at a local level, because you have to look these people in the eyes. But I think if you find a compass in beliefs and in people, and at the end of the day, for me, it's not even an it is an accountability. But I feel like, as was said right at the beginning of this morning in the devotion, I'm amazed at people continually. I'm amazed at how the most ground down people are intelligent and thoughtful and capable and have possibility, etc. I get inspired by that. I don't get inspired by politicians. I get fulfilled by that. And I think that's the joy. I was talking to Naledi when we were driving here. You know, being an activist it involves sacrifice. And sometimes it involves possibly the ultimate sacrifice of being shot or something. But it's constantly rewarding. You know, I've got far more in the engagements, in the people that you meet, than the money that you could have made if you followed a career ladder. So that's my inadequate response to your question. But I'm glad you're asking these questions, because I think these are the things that we need to have frank conversations with each other about, rather than steering around them. So thank you.